It was a quiet morning in the house where Tom, the crafty cat, and Jerry, the mischievous mouse, lived. The air was still, and the only sound was the ticking of an ornate grandfather clock in the living room. But peace never lasted long when these two were around. Tom lay stretched out on the couch, lazily flicking his tail, pretending to sleep. His eyes were half open, fixed on Jerry's hole in the wall. Meanwhile, Jerry was busy building something in his little mouse workshop, a mysterious contraption made of gears, springs, and clock parts he had pilfered from the house. Jerry had been inspired by the mechanical toys he'd seen in the attic, and now he had a plan. With a twist of a tiny wrench, he completed his invention, a miniature clockwork version of himself. The tiny mechanical Jerry was identical, right down to the whiskers, and ran on a wind-up key. It was his ultimate decoy. As Jerry released his clockwork clone, it scurried across the floor, its movements jerky but effective. Tom's ears perked up at the sound of its little metal feet. Thinking he finally had Jerry in his sights, Tom sprang from the couch and pounced. But the clockwork mouse zipped around in unpredictable patterns, dodging Tom with uncanny precision. "Gotcha," Tom snarled, clutching at the mechanical mouse, only for it to spin wildly in his paws and shoot straight out of the room. Furious, Tom gave chase, knocking over a vase, the lampshade, and an unsuspecting houseplant. From the safety of his hole, Jerry watched the chaos unfold, snickering to himself. But Tom wasn't about to give up. He cornered the clockwork mouse near the grandfather clock and finally grabbed it, grinning triumphantly. That's when the little mouse's true function activated. A tiny explosion of flour burst from its belly, covering Tom from head to tail in white powder. Tom sneezed violently and stumbled back, accidentally hitting the pendulum of the grandfather clock. The clock began to chime loudly and started a chain reaction. The gears inside spun wildly, launching its hands like boomerangs and sending springs flying across the room. One large spring latched onto Tom's tail, catapulting him into the chandelier. Jerry, watching this mechanical mayhem, laughed so hard he rolled on the floor. But his joy was short-lived. One of the clock's errant springs ricocheted off the wall and hit Jerry's tail, launching him into a pile of cotton balls. Now both Tom and Jerry were caught in the chaos they had unwittingly created. But just as they were about to retaliate against each other, the door creaked open. The stern figure of their owner, Mammy Two Shoes, stepped inside. "What in tarnation happened here?" she bellowed, hands on her hips. Tom and Jerry froze, looking at each other. In an unspoken truce, Jerry darted back into his hole, and Tom grabbed a broom to make it look like he was cleaning. Mammy Two Shoes shook her head, muttering, "One day, I'll figure out what goes on in this house." As she walked away, Tom and Jerry shared a brief moment of quiet. As Tom lunged for Jerry, the little mouse darted under the coffee table, where a pile of clock parts from his earlier project still lay scattered. Jerry grabbed a shiny gear and tossed it at Tom, hitting him square on the nose. Startled, Tom stumbled backward, his tail accidentally triggering a mousetrap Jerry had rigged earlier. Snap! Tom yowled, hopping on one foot as the mousetrap clung to his tail. Jerry seized the moment to run toward the kitchen, laughing all the way. But Tom wasn't giving up so easily. With a growl, he tossed the mousetrap aside and charged after Jerry, who was already rummaging through the pantry for his next trick. In the kitchen, Jerry found exactly what he needed: a box of marbles and a bottle of cooking oil. He quickly poured the oil across the floor and scattered the marbles on top, creating a treacherous path. As Tom burst through the door, he slipped immediately, his feet flailing wildly as he struggled to regain balance. Tom grabbed the counter for support, only to accidentally pull down a rolling pin, which bonked him on the head. The marbles sent him sliding in circles until he crashed into a sack of flour. The flour burst open, covering Tom in a puff of white dust for the second time that day. Jerry, still laughing, decided to up the ante. He climbed onto the kitchen counter and used a string to lower a wedge of cheese onto a mousetrap he had set as bait. He dangled the cheese in plain view, knowing Tom wouldn't be able to resist. But Tom, for once, wasn't falling for it. Glaring at Jerry, he picked up a spatula and launched it like a boomerang. The spatula narrowly missed Jerry, but cut the string holding the cheese. The cheese fell into Tom's waiting paws, and he smirked triumphantly. Before he could savor his victory, however, Jerry triggered a lever he had rigged earlier. A bucket of water tipped over from above, drenching Tom and turning the flour coating him into a sticky paste. Now resembling a soggy dough ball, Tom stumbled out of the kitchen, muttering angrily. As the chaos escalated, Jerry's clockwork mouse returned to the scene, still running on its wind-up mechanism. It zipped past Tom, who, now fueled by determination, lunged after it. But instead of catching the mechanical decoy, Tom accidentally stepped on its wind-up key. The key twisted under Tom's weight, overwinding the clockwork mouse. With a loud ping, the mouse went haywire, spinning in circles before exploding into a shower of springs and gears. One spring launched into the air and hit the chandelier, causing it to swing wildly. Jerry, realizing things were getting out of hand, tried to retreat to his hole. But the swinging chandelier knocked over a shelf full of dishes, sending plates and cups crashing to the floor. The racket brought Mammy Two Shoes storming back into the room, this time armed with a broom. As Jerry piloted his cheese drone out of the kitchen, he soared toward the attic, a treasure trove of forgotten items. Tom followed closely behind, leaping and climbing with all the agility he could muster. The attic was filled with old furniture, trunks, and piles of cobweb-covered knickknacks, perfect for a game of cat and mouse. Jerry steered the drone through a maze of boxes, weaving in and out as Tom tried to keep up. Frustrated, Tom grabbed an old tennis racket from a pile and began swatting at the drone. One swing finally hit its mark, sending the drone spiraling into an old phonograph. The record player came to life, blasting loud, off-key music that startled them both. Jerry landed safely on a shelf and immediately spotted something even better, an old wind-up train set. Grinning, he jumped down and began winding the train. The tiny locomotive whirred to life, chugging along its track with a whistle that echoed through the attic. Jerry hopped onto the train's caboose and waved at Tom, daring him to catch up. Tom snarled and gave chase, knocking over a stack of books in the process. The train track twisted around the attic, looping under furniture and over makeshift bridges. Jerry gleefully threw coal-shaped candy from the train's engine at Tom, each one hitting its mark. Tom finally managed to corner the train near an old trunk, but just as he pounced, Jerry flipped a lever. The train's speed doubled, and it zipped away, leaving Tom tumbling headfirst into a pile of dusty cushions. Frustrated and covered in dust, Tom decided it was time to play dirty. He rummaged through a pile of forgotten toys until he found a slingshot and a bag of marbles. With a wicked grin, he loaded the slingshot and began firing marbles at Jerry's train. Jerry, quick on his feet, dodged most of the marbles. But one lucky shot hit the train's engine, derailing it. Jerry tumbled off the track, landing on a trampoline that sent him flying across the attic. He grabbed onto a hanging rope just in time, swinging dramatically to safety. Not one to give up, Jerry spotted a dusty old jack-in-the-box. He wound it up rapidly, knowing it would be the perfect distraction. As Tom approached, the jack-in-the-box sprang open with a loud boing, sending a clown head flying straight into Tom's face. Startled, Tom stumbled backward, tripping over the train tracks and landing in an old birdcage that shut around him like a trap. Jerry, perched triumphantly on a shelf, laughed and clapped his hands, but his victory was short-lived. Tom, using his claws, bent the bars of the cage and squeezed out. With a roar, he lunged at Jerry, who scampered off toward the window. Jerry pushed open the attic window and climbed onto the roof. The bright sunlight made him squint as he carefully navigated the steep tiles. Tom burst through the window moments later, his paws slipping on the shingles as he scrambled after Jerry. The chase continued across the rooftop, with Jerry cleverly using TV antennas and gutters to outmaneuver Tom. At one point, Jerry leapt onto a weather vane, which spun wildly under his weight. Tom, not thinking ahead, leapt after him and ended up tangled in a line of laundry hanging nearby. Just when Jerry thought he had won, he accidentally triggered a loose roof tile. The tile slid down the roof, carrying Jerry with it. He squeaked in alarm as he surfed uncontrollably toward the edge. Tom, spotting his chance, freed himself from the laundry and sprinted after him. Both of them flew off the roof and landed in the backyard, crashing into a wheelbarrow full of hay. Dazed but unharmed, they sat up and looked at each other. Before Tom could make his next move, the sound of barking filled the air. As night fell, Jerry, feeling victorious, sneaked back into the house with a new plan. While Tom was licking his wounds and sulking by the pond, Jerry wandered into the garage, a treasure trove of gadgets, tools, and half-finished projects. There, he stumbled upon the ultimate machine, a partially built remote-controlled car. With a wicked grin, Jerry tinkered with the car, attaching spare clock parts and transforming it into his new escape vehicle. He even installed a miniature cheese compartment for himself to sit in. After hours of work, the car was ready. Jerry revved up the engine, which roared like a miniature race car, and zoomed out of the garage. The sound of the engine startled Tom, who sprinted to investigate. Seeing Jerry zipping around in the tiny car, Tom's jaw dropped. But he quickly grabbed a toolbox and got to work, determined to fight fire with fire. Tom built his own vehicle out of scraps, a rickety, rocket-powered skateboard. Despite its unstable appearance, it was fast, too fast. With a roar, Tom launched himself after Jerry, his makeshift contraption spewing smoke and sparks as he tore across the backyard. Jerry led Tom on a high-speed chase through the garden, weaving through flower beds and narrowly avoiding the sprinkler system. Tom, unable to steer properly, plowed straight through a rose bush, emerging covered in thorns. The chase escalated as Jerry veered onto the sidewalk and headed toward the nearby city park. Tom followed, his rocket skateboard sputtering but still keeping pace. The two raced past startled pedestrians, leapt over park benches, and sped through a children's playground, leaving chaos in their wake. The chase led them straight into a carnival that was bustling with activity. Jerry, spotting an opportunity for more mischief, drove his car onto a roller coaster track. Tom, undeterred, followed, his skateboard clattering along the rails. The roller coaster carriages were already in motion, forcing Jerry and Tom to dodge and weave between them. Jerry expertly maneuvered around the loops and twists, but Tom wasn't as lucky. A sharp turn sent him flying off the track and into a cotton candy stand, where he emerged tangled in sticky pink fluff. Jerry zoomed off the roller coaster and into the carnival's funhouse, where mirrors distorted his tiny car into bizarre shapes. Tom, still covered in cotton candy, barged in after him, only to be confused by the endless reflections. He lunged at what he thought was Jerry, only to smash into a mirror, shattering it into pieces. Jerry used the chaos to escape into the nearby bumper car arena. With a quick jump, he abandoned his car and took control of a bumper car, zipping around the arena with newfound glee. Tom, fuming, jumped into a bumper car of his own. The two engaged in a hilariously chaotic battle, slamming into each other with increasing ferocity. Sparks flew as the cars collided, sending both spinning wildly. Jerry used his small size to his advantage, darting between other bumper cars and forcing Tom to crash into obstacles. Finally, Jerry steered his car toward the exit, leading Tom out of the carnival and back onto the city streets. The chase took a turn for the dramatic as Jerry led Tom to a nearby pier overlooking the ocean. The moonlit water sparkled as Jerry's tiny car skidded to a stop at the very edge. Tom, his rocket skateboard finally giving out, tumbled forward and crashed into Jerry's car, sending both of them teetering on the edge. For a moment, everything was still. Then, with a loud creak, the wooden plank beneath them snapped. Both Tom and Jerry plunged into the water below, their vehicles sinking into the depths. Jerry popped up first, clutching a piece of driftwood like a raft. Tom surfaced moments later, looking soggy and defeated. But before he could make another move, a school of fish swarmed around him, nibbling at his fur and sending him scrambling back to shore. Jerry floated serenely to the beach, triumphant once again. Back at the house, Spike was lounging in the backyard when Jerry returned, riding on his driftwood raft.